Hey everybody, so this is Kyle again. Uh, been a while, but I had a particular topic to talk about today based on one of the viewers. Um, so, polyamory versus monogamy. Uh, I know quite a bit about it. I've talked to a few people about polyamory. I've looked into some psychological studies and stuff like that. Um, One of the things that, I'm personally on monogamy side. That's just me. That's just how I work. That's just how I know I work. Um, uh, and some people work with polyamory. Like they can work that way. And to start this off, basically, the consensus of the information that I've gotten is basically, however you work personally, that is uh, that's what you should do. So like if you are more tailored towards polyamory, then you should be polyamorous and find other like-minded people that will be polyamorous with you. Uh, then there's monogamy, which it's considered the cultural norm, but you know the the thing about that is that uh, with when it comes into respect with how humans work, uh, a lot of polyamorous people will say like, oh, we just have the ability to love more, or like we can love more than just one, or oh, it's okay if we can actually share. And I think that those statements are a little misguided, because I think that my ability to have multiple partners is not a reflection on whether or not I can share things. Uh, like I can share my car, like if somebody needs it, like hey, like you can use my car, and that's like a $13,000 investment that I've made personally, and I can still let somebody borrow it if they really needed it, and so on. So, and then with the loving more, people in monogamous relationships can still just love one person more than they did yesterday, or they can make an effort to love them more. And I think that saying that type of thing, like polyamory is somehow better, I don't think that's really accurate. I know monogamous relationships that allow for sexual relationships with other people. I know that that doesn't exactly make sense, but essentially it's that intimately you're with one person. Spiritually, emotionally, you give that person your time and your energy to 100%, but that understanding, we're very sexual creatures, and that some people they need a little bit more sexually, or like sometimes everything doesn't really work out in bed, and sometimes you can't exactly uh, get your needs from one person. And I think that there are some relationships that I've met where they allow for sexual uh, escapism, so to speak. Bad word choice, but essentially, like people can have sex with other partners, but then uh, you know they always just come back. They come back home to their one partner, their one real monogamous partner, um, and uh, and sometimes that actually helps. That actually helps out a lot, because then the people feel like their needs are getting met, and then they become more comfortable in that situation. And it's not that they love like other people. It's not polyamory because they're not in love with that person. They're not dividing their time up again to another person, and that leads to another problem that I found with polyamory is that when you have multiple partners, you have to divide your attention up equally or not equally, depending. But it's either equally or it's not equally. And if it's equally, then you're going to have a hard time managing that. So it's a lot of time management, a lot more than what you would need with a regular person, which is already difficult. Uh, you if you divide it up unequally, then you're not being fair. You're not saying, oh, well, like you're worth only 10% of my time, while this other person is worth 80, because I don't know that we have better sex, whatever. It could be any reason. and and then that's where, you know, those types of relationships get stressed. They get pressured in a bad way. And while when with monogamy, uh, relationships are hard. Relationships take, you know, sacrifice. They take work. They're not easy. Um, and you want to add multiples of that, right? And with monogamy, you have the ability to focus, spend years, spend time, spend experiences with one person, getting to know them better, getting to, you know, essentially perfect one thing. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like jack of all trades, or the and the master of none, or the master of one. So, you know, it's that's really kind of how I see it, is that, you know, you could put in the time, you could put in the time to figure out multiple people. You could easily figure it out, maybe not easily, but, you know, you could figure it out. It's not impossible. And I don't want to come across saying like polyamory is impossible, or that it's like not amazing for the people that it works for, because you know, there are a lot of people who it turns out great for. I'm just saying that uh, it's simple logic when you have one person and their needs versus multiple people and their needs. You know, from a managerial kind of perspective, you're taking on more work, you're taking on more effort and experience, and it could yield a greater reward. Who knows? I've never been in a polyamorous relationship, but I know from a perspective, I dated a girl. She wanted an open relationship, which was essentially polyamory, except um, not all parties are included in who gets to be in it, sort of thing, which I think open relationships are really bad. I don't think that that's a good thing at all. And I was dumb and young, and I agreed to it. Um, I didn't like it at all. And there's a difference between open relationships and polyamory. And that difference is essentially, in a polyamorous relationship, all partners are basically sided on equal understanding of like where everyone stands. And essentially, like, for instance, you could have one girl and two guys. If you wanted to have a girl and a, like, say it started off with just a boyfriend and girlfriend, monogamous, and then the girl or the guy said, I would like a polyamorous relationship, and then they both agreed, hey, yeah, that sounds good, like, let's try it. And then, you know, another guy was included, and but they would both like choose that person. It wouldn't be like oh, the guy just decides that he's going to add this one person and then the girl just has to go with it. It's like, no, it's a very kind of communicative sort of decision. And with open relationships, it's kind of like, hey, like, we'll date, but like, I get to date whoever the fuck else I want. You know what I mean? And uh, like, you don't really get to choose who I get to date. It's just more like I'm just dating you and I'm dating them, and then they're dating maybe somebody else, and so on and so forth, and then that's just how that goes. Um, but yeah, so that that's kind of like the difference between open and polyamory. Um, and you know, in from the cultural standpoint of like monogamy, you know, society as a whole kind of just generally decided that that's how it wanted to be. And, you know, a lot of people say like, oh, well, Christian values and like other religions basically brought up marriage. And it's, well, that's not exactly true, because marriage existed far before Christianity and Islam and like really anything. And it's funny too. My dad always tells me this part where, you know, don't quote me on this. I don't know. I didn't actually like go on into this to research. It's kind of just off the top of my head right now. But my dad would always tell me, like, Peter, the apostle, basically said, you don't have to get married. You don't. But if you do, you need to respect your wife. You need to respect her, and you need to treat her with love and respect, and treat her well. And he's like, and he was actually, my dad he said that you know, he was actually kind of against marriage. He was like, he didn't necessarily think that that was like the best way or something like that. But that uh, if you do it, like you don't have to, but if you do, then you need to put in your work. You need to put in your effort, and you need to make it work and make it and try harder. Um, uh, and there's another tangent to this with like cheating and with uh, monogamous relationships. And say for instance you marry, right? You take a vow that till death do us part, right? And so if somebody cheats, I know it's said in the Bible that like cheating and adultery is like a good enough reason to leave somebody, but then you're essentially just forgetting your vows, in my opinion. You're saying, okay, before death, then before death, for like just because I don't feel like working this out or trying to figure out what's wrong or how can I make myself better so that you don't feel like you need to go do that, and not working on it. And because there's a lot of reasons I think people cheat. Um, I think that sometimes it's convenience. Sometimes it's um, they feel trapped. They want escapism. They don't want to, um, or maybe it's just like some random fling. They just want to feel sexual, because or maybe they need something sexual that they haven't been getting. Uh, there's tons of reasons. I've heard a lot of different reasons as to why. I don't think they're good. Because just because this person feels trapped doesn't mean that they should go do that. I think that they should talk with their partner and communicate. I don't think that if you're not getting what you need sexually, that should be a good reason. I think again you should talk to your partner, and that's why they say communication is such a key paramount thing in relationships, is because like the person may not be getting what they want, and then you just have no idea. And then they'd go off and cheat on you, and then that's it. I was cheated on a long time ago. Uh, Still don't know why. It honestly, at this, like in hindsight, it almost felt like malicious. Like it was just, or they just wanted to be able to say that they did it, or like some sort of feeling of power, some sort of feeling of control. I don't know. That one I don't think we could have worked through at all. But as far as hopefully if you're married, you get through these problems beforehand. Uh, and if you haven't, go see a counselor. But so that's kind of just in general where I kind of sit with monogamy and polyamory. I think that either one you choose, it's going to take effort, it's going to take work, problems are going to come up. You may not be ready for almost all of them. But there are people who can help. There are marriage counselors. I tell my friends all the time who've been in long relationships, I'm like, go see a marriage counselor, and they're like, yeah, but we're not married. And it's like, you don't have to. I have a cousin that went to go see a marriage counselor before they even got married. Why? Because they wanted to work through their problems, and the marriage counselor helps them work through those problems. So if you're struggling in a relationship right now, and if you're having problems, and if you need advice, and neither of you know exactly how to deal with it, then go to somebody else. Because sometimes we don't have all the information that we need. Sometimes that there's just more information out there that we don't know how to grasp. And a marriage counselor can help out a lot. Therapists, if that's kind of your, if you need that, go for it. Um, and with and back to monogamy with the kind of family structure. um, I watch a lot of Jordan Peterson's stuff, and he's talked about how the family structure and the societal structure is based on the individual, right? So he's a very individualist kind of person, and he basically says that, you know, God asks you to take personal responsibility for your actions. He tells you to, like, you sin, take responsibility for it. You know, be better, be a better person, get better. Um, and you know, and the road is hard, and you know, it's gonna suck, it's gonna hurt, but like you have to take that responsibility upon yourself. And then once you've taken it upon yourself, you incorporate someone else in your life, right? So now you have two people. Um, and then you build together and work on each other, some sort of level of accountability, right? And then once you have that, you build a family. And from that, you teach your kids how to be better and take responsibility for their actions. And so now you have this family structure. And from that, you incorporate multiple families uh, that create a community or a society, right? And so from the bottom up, it's basically about like taking responsibility and working and effort and um, being a better person. And then you have the um, later implications, how it kind of snowballs into a whole society, right? And so polyamory, I think, can do that. I think it's a lot harder. I think that when you have to focus on multiple people and you have to grow simultaneously with each other, it kind of scatters it. There's the ability to maintain relationships decreases the more you have, right? So this is even true in psychology, where they say like you can only remember 500 names, and then you can only really maintain like 150 relationships at max. So like, and most of us don't do that. Most of you probably have uh, at max like 25 close friends. Um, you might have more. You might have a lot more close friends, but like I'm saying close friends as in like you talk to them regularly, you keep in touch with them. Like I know me, like I only keep in touch with maybe 5 people on a regular basis, and you know that I'm not saying that like everyone else isn't my friend, but I'm saying that like you know if they would basically have to message me first for us to really be in touch, um, and and it's fine, you know. Like I usually don't reach out just because life, you know. Sometimes I'm just busy. Sometimes I think they're busy. Uh, you know, sometimes I do reach out and then they just don't get back to me. Like, you know, it's life, right? But so it's already proven basically that like when you increase the amount of effort needed, the efficacy of that effort. So the output from my input decreases as the more I put out, which is weird, right? With when you have more people, right? But if you have one person, if you put more into it, the more you'll get out of it. But as soon as you have more people, the more you output, it's not necessarily going, or the more you input, it's not necessarily going to increase how much you get out of it, right? And and that's mostly because think of it like this: you have one cup full of water, and then you have two empty cups. These two empty cups are your partners. You can fill one cup all the way, or you can fill both cups 50%, or you can kind of juggle around how much. But you have a limit. I think everybody has a limit on how much energy they can provide and how much care and whatever. Even if it's a lot, I don't care. But you know, you could put in 100% and you would get 50% from both of them. Or you can put in 100% in one person and you get 100% back. And that's kind of how I see it. Anyway, that would be about it. I wish I could have quoted some of the studies and some of the information, but it's pretty general. Like everybody's pretty much on the same ball as like, you know, again, whatever works for you personally. Find people who are like-minded, and then it'll work out for the most part. Regardless, both of them are hard. Both of them require work. Both of them require effort, and really, that's it. That's about it. I think I'm mostly a monogamous person personally. I've never been in a polyamorous relationship. I just get kind of jealous I'm just kind of a jealous kind of guy. Not in like a terrible toxic masculinity sort of way, but just in a, yeah, don't touch my girlfriend's butt. Yeah, that's a no-no. But um, yeah. Anyway, this has been Kyle Talks: Polyamory versus Monogamy.